Have you ever noticed how the traits you dislike most in others are often the ones you secretly hide in yourself? This is what Carl Jung called the shadow, the hidden self we don't want to admit exists. Today, we'll break down Jung's idea of the shadow, why we hide parts of ourselves, and how shadow projection shows up in real life. By the end, you'll understand how to recognize your shadow and even start working with it. First, let's define the shadow. Carl Jung described the shadow as the unconscious parts of ourselves we repress, our fears, desires, impulses, or traits that don't fit the identity we want to show the world. Think of it as the hidden, unfiltered version of you. For example, let's say you grew up being told, "Don't be selfish." You might repress your natural desire for attention or setting boundaries, and that desire lives in your shadow. Perhaps you hate confrontation and always put others' needs before your own. Deep down, you resent this pressure you feel to be selfless, but you don't allow yourself to acknowledge that resentment or even your need for healthy boundaries. Instead, you stuff those feelings into your subconscious. They don't go away just because you ignore them. They manifest in subtle ways, like passive aggression towards those who ask too much of you or burnout from never prioritizing your own needs. The shadow is not just negative traits. It can also include hidden strengths like creativity, confidence, or sexuality that were shamed or that you haven't fully embraced yet. Essentially, anything disowned or repressed by your conscious mind can live in your shadow. Now that we know what the shadow is, let's explore why we hide parts of ourselves. First, there's social conditioning. From the time we're little, our parents, teachers, and culture tell us, this is good and this is bad. This creates a list of traits we think make us unacceptable, and we internalize it. You might have been told, girls shouldn't be angry, so now you repress your anger, maybe feeling ashamed or confused by it. Second, there's the fear of rejection. If we think others won't accept us for who we truly are, we hide parts of ourselves to protect the image we want others to see. Maybe you're worried showing your ambitious side will make others see you as a go-getter and not enough of a team player, so you downplay your drive to avoid conflict. Third, there's identity protection. Jung described this as creating a mask or persona. The persona is what we present to the world based on what we think others want or expect from us. Everything the mask rejects becomes part of the shadow. So, for example, you might be a high achiever who's constantly striving for success. To protect your identity, you might hide your lower grades or a test score that didn't meet expectations. In this case, you might judge and criticize others who aren't high achievers. But your shame around your own average test score fuels the judgment. Let's look at a real-life example. Say you're a people pleaser who puts others' needs before their own and gets taken advantage of. Behind the scenes, you resent this dynamic, but to protect your identity, you hide your anger and frustration. It leaks out as passive-aggressive comments, or you burn out from exhaustion. Others might see you as a martyr who's always sacrificing too much of themselves. In reality, you're struggling with the conflict between wanting to help others, but also needing to set boundaries. People might mistake your introversion or need for alone time as selfishness, but you feel anxious asking for your needs to be met directly. And since you repress this part of yourself, you struggle to make your own wants and needs clear. Now that we understand why we hide parts of ourselves, let's explore how we project our shadow onto others. Projection happens when we see in others what we deny in ourselves. It's like our mind plays a game of you do you, Renee. For example, someone who refuses to admit they're selfish might constantly accuse others of being selfish because they see that trait in themselves but reject it. A person repressing their ambition might criticize others for being too ambitious because they secretly want that for themselves but fear going after it. Jung said, "Everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves." Essentially, pay attention to who triggers you and why. It's a sign pointing to something you might be denying in yourself. But why does projection happen? There are two main reasons. First, it's easier to judge and criticize others than look inward. It feels safer to call someone else selfish than examine why you might be acting that way yourself. Second, facing what you've rejected about yourself is painful. It's hard to confront the truth about ourselves, but suppressing it and projecting it onto others allows us to temporarily escape that pain. You might be wondering, if we all project our shadow, then doesn't that mean everyone's just a hypocrite? Well, yes, but that's not the whole story. Just because we all project our shadow doesn't mean we can't grow and change. The key is awareness. When we catch ourselves judging others for a trait we see in ourselves, we have a choice. We can continue projecting it outwards or bring it back in to integrate it consciously. It takes courage and self-awareness to turn towards the shadow, but it's worth it. Jung said the goal is not to reject the shadow, but to own it. The opposite of the shadow isn't light, it's wholeness. When we integrate our shadow, we become more complete human beings. So how do we recognize our shadow? Pay attention to three things. First, strong emotional reactions. Who triggers you and why? Notice what sets you off and explore where those feelings come from. If you feel intense anger towards someone, ask yourself, what part of me am I rejecting by judging this person? Second, notice recurring patterns. Do you keep encountering the same type of conflict? For example, if you're always attracting partners who are too controlling, there might be a part of you that craves that kind of guidance. Or if you frequently find yourself in situations where you're not being appreciated, maybe you're subconsciously expecting to be taken for granted. These patterns reflect parts of ourselves we need to integrate. And third, look at qualities you admire or envy in others. They might also be disowned parts of you. For example, if you get irritated by a colleague's confidence, maybe you struggle with insecurity yourself. These irritants point to what we resist acknowledging within ourselves. Essentially, the key to recognizing your shadow is to pay attention to the parts of yourself you dislike the most. It's uncomfortable, but this dislike reflects a desire to bring something disowned back home to your whole self. Now let's talk about how to integrate our shadow. The first step is awareness. Instead of rejecting the shadow, get curious. Ask questions like, where did this belief that I'm not allowed to want this thing come from? What would it feel like to fully own this part of myself? What would it look like to treat myself with the same kindness and compassion I expect from others? Journaling, therapy, or shadow work practices can help bring awareness to the shadow. But ultimately, integrating it requires daily attention. Be patient and kind to yourself as you explore these hidden parts. Remember, integration doesn't mean acting out every impulse or desire. It means owning it consciously so it no longer controls you from the dark. Think of it like cleaning out a closet. You wouldn't throw away everything in your closet, right? You just want to remove what you don't need and organize the rest. Similarly, integrating your shadow isn't about removing all your negative traits. It's about acknowledging them, understanding where they come from, and finding a healthy balance. We can't change our past, but we can learn from it. As Jung said, the past has an effect on us only while we identify ourselves with it. The past can hurt, but you can also learn from it. So what's one small step you can take today to clean out your inner closet? Maybe it's journaling about a trigger that came up this week, or exploring a personality trait you dislike in yourself. When you face your shadow, you stop being a prisoner of it and step closer to your whole self. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please share for more Psychology Explained. Until next time.